What's going on, Jeremians? In today's video, we will be talking about the phrase pad feature on the Casio CT-X5000 and the Casio CT-X3000. On the Yamaha keyboards, the multi-pads, which is the equivalent of the phrase pads, are usually found on the higher end instruments, for example, their S series, their Tyros, and their GNOS workstation, which costs from twice as much as the Casio CT-X and up to 10 times as much for a model like the GNOS. And right now, for a fraction of the price, you can enjoy the creative feature and function found on the phrase pad and use phrases to enhance your playing and make it originally yours. There are a total of 100 available slots where you can store your creative phrases, and these are divided into 25 phrase sets. So every set comes with 4 blank phrase slots that you can save your original phrases into. I was quite surprised that even though there are 100 slots divided into 25 phrase sets, the Casio CT-X only ships with 4 available phrases, and Casio has left the other 96 slots available for you to save your creative phrases and use it with your playing. In this video, I will be teaching you how to organize your phrase sets, how to delete your phrase sets, as well as how to record your own loops or melodic phrases that you can use in your songs. In my experience, I have found that the phrase pads is one of the least used feature on the Casio CT-X5000 and 3000. That is because a lot of the musicians and players on this keyboard have no idea or are not very confident on how to create their own phrases and how do they incorporate it into their own playing. After today's video, it will no longer be a mystery and you can incorporate phrase pads into your playing. If you're new here, my name is Jeremy C, and in this channel I make reviews, tips and tricks and tutorials about a range of keyboards and portable digital pianos. If you enjoy content like this, make sure you subscribe and smash that notification bell icon to not miss out any single video I upload. If you're from Singapore, make sure you head over to keyboards.sg to get personalized keyboard buying advice from me, or if you are interested in taking lessons from me. Let's get started. Before we start to create our own phrase sets and our own phrase pads, we want to have a look at the 4 phrase pads that has been provided by Casio from the factory. So there are actually 25 phrase sets, and to select the phrase sets, all you need to do is go to Function and use the right side arrow, which is number 3 on the numeric keypad, until you find phrase pad. Once you have that, you press Enter and it will show which phrase set is the active one. And you use plus and minus key, you will be able to load the phrase sets that you need for your playing. So Casio has actually made every single phrase set exactly the same from the factory. So phrase set 1 is the same throughout until phrase set 25. Let's have a look at what is in the factory phrase set. The first one, we have like a little arpeggiated synth sound, which does not react to chord changes, and it also does not loop. So you can actually specify when you record your own phrase pads, whether you want the phrase pad to keep looping and only stop when you press the stop button, or you want it to stop after it finished the phrase. The second configuration you can set is whether the phrase pad reacts to chord changes. So in this case, the first phrase set does not react to chord changes. So it doesn't matter what chord you play, it will play the exact same melodic line. Let me give you an example. See, I've changed the chord, but it's playing the exact same phrase. And let's look at the phrase pad number 2, which is a little guitar strumming sound. So this guitar strumming sound is also not in a loop, which means that it stops by itself after the phrase has ended without having to press the stop button. In the same way, phrase pad number 2, the guitar strumming, does not react to chord changes. So it doesn't matter what chord I play, phrase set 2 is exactly the same. let's have a look at phrase set number 3. Phrase set number 3 is actually a bass line. And you realize that it is also not set to loop, which means that it will only play for the number of bars that it has been recorded and it will stop. However, you realize that phrase pad number 3 reacts to chord changes. See, as I change the chord, that bass line on phrase pad number 3 changes. Next, let's look at phrase pad number 4. So this is a loop. You realize that it keeps going on if I don't press stop. If I want it to stop, I have to press stop button. And this reacts to chord changes. Okay, so we have the 4 default factory phrase sets here. I'm going to show you how you can use it to spice up your playing. For example, you might want to just start with the auto accompaniment. And then you want to layer it up with a synth sound. Add some guitars and the synth as well. Let's add additional bass line. Let's add the marimbas, which changes according to the chord that I'm playing, and you'll keep playing until I stop. And we all, of course, know what song inspired this style and this rhythmic track. So you realize that even though the accompaniment has stopped, phrase pad number 4 doesn't stop because it has been set on a loop. It will only stop when you press stop. So later on, I will teach you how to set the different configuration possible when you're creating your own sets and your own phrase pads. Before we start creating our own phrase set and our own phrase pads, we want to delete one of the phrase sets from the inbuilt 25 phrase sets. So I've decided to delete phrase set number 2. And how do we do that? To delete a phrase set, what you need to do first is to select the phrase set that you want to delete. So I'm going into the phrase pad function, pressing enter, and I am going to select phrase set number 2 by hitting the plus sign. And to delete, what you need to do is press record stop here, and it will show copy. So copy is useful if you want to copy a phrase set from bank number 1, for example, to bank number 5, and you want to edit a certain phrase set, but you do not want to touch the original. So this is where the copy function is found. But this is not a function we're going to use. So let's look at the next one, which is clear. If I press clear, I press enter, it will ask me if I indeed want to clear. I press yes, and now phrase set 2 will be empty. You realize that when I press all the phrases, it is all empty. So this is a blank canvas for us to create our own phrase set. Okay, now that we have deleted phrase set number 2, I will be recording 2 phrases that I will be using in this example. I will be playing the song Fly Me to the Moon, and I'll be recording 2 phrases that I will use to layer my performance. So the first phrase pad I will be making is using the accordion sound, the French accordion sound, to create an additional instrument part in my playing. And before we start recording our phrase pad and our phrase set, we must make sure that the configuration of our phrase is correct. So how do we do that? We first go into function, we go into phrase pad, we press enter, and we have the phrase set. And you can see that number 2 is selected. What I do is I just have to go to my right arrow and pad 1 is selected. And once pad 1 is selected, if you press enter again, you are able to configure how you want your phrase pad to be when you record it. So the first option is whether you want the phrase to loop. So if you turn it on, it will keep looping unless you press stop. In my instance, I do not want a looped phrase, therefore I'll set it to off. And if you look at the next function, key shift, this is whether a phrase pad that you have already recorded, you can transpose it and change it to a different key to suit the song that you are playing, because the song that you're playing may not be in the same key as the phrase pad that you have recorded. Next one, let's look at option number 3, and that is the timing synchronization. This is how you want the phrase pad to be synchronized. And if you look at it, number 1, it does not synchronize to any of the accompaniment beat. You can also synchronize it to the beat, which means that it will come in based on the nearest beat, or the next one is it is synced according to the measure, which means that the phrase pad will only come in on the next measure after you press the phrase pad button. So I like to have mine synchronized to the measure so that when I press it, it will come in on the next measure. And the next configuration is whether we want the phrase pad to be synchronized to your chord. If you want your phrases to change based on the chord that you are playing, then you want to make sure that chord synchronization is on. In this case, I am not synchronizing it with my chord, so I turn it off. And if you are using synchronization with the chord, you want to specify the breakpoint. That is, which chord does it play, whether it's C, D, E, F, or G, where the phrase starts to shift 1 octave lower. This is especially important, otherwise your phrase would keep going higher and higher and it would sound unnatural. This is also a very useful function which I will cover in further detail when we are doing style creation. Many times styles do not sound good because the person who's programming the style didn't set a correct breakpoint. In this case, it doesn't matter for this phrase set that I'm doing because I will not be synchronizing it to the chord. So those are all the functions that's available. Once we have done, we exit. So in the same way, my second pad, I do not want it to loop. I also do not want any key shift. And for my timing synchronization, I want to set it to measure so that it will come in on the next measure after I record it. And next we have the chord synchronization, which is off, and the breakpoint, which doesn't matter in this case. So I will be recording 2 of the phrase pads. Before we start recording the phrase pad into the phrase set, which is phrase set number 2, this is what we need to do. First, we have to make sure the tone that we want, and I'm using the French accordion here for my phrase pad. We have to press function, make sure we go to phrase pad, press enter, and we got to make sure that the correct phrase set is selected. Once you have done that, you will press record, and you realize that when you press record, there will be options for you to change different things before you start recording. Firstly is the length. How long do you want your phrase pad to be, right? You want it 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars. You can record up to 16 bars. In my case, 3 bars is more than sufficient. Next option is the quantize. How tightly do you want to align the notes? Which means that if you set the quantize to a quarter note, even if you are playing quavers, it will actually push it to become a crotchet. Do we want a metronome? Yes, I want a metronome. Do I want a pre-count? I don't need a pre-count. Now that we are all set, I am ready to record. To record, all I need to do is press start. Okay, you can see that P1 is the one that's being recorded, which is phrase pad 1. It will keep going on, and if I want to add additional recording to it, I can layer over this recording and overdub it. But the timing sounds good. So to stop, all I need to do is press stop here, and if you listen to the phrase pad, there you go. Now I'm going to record my phrase pad number 2, my phrase pad number 2 in my phrase set number 2. So I go to function, make sure I select phrase pad, enter, make sure phrase set is selected, alright, and then I press record. Instead of P1 blinking, I gotta press P2. So you can see that P1 already has information, that's why it's a solid black button here. And P2 is blinking because this is our target that we are going to record into. Same thing, I want my length to be 3 bars. I do not need any quantization. I want my metronome to be on. I do not need any pre-count. And when I'm ready, all I need to do is press start and I can start recording. And if I'm happy with the result, all I need to do is press stop. And right now, when I press my phrase pad number 2, and here I'm using the flute sound for my right hand melody, and as I'm playing, I will be triggering phrase pad 1 and phrase pad 2 to enhance my playing as though I have an additional hand playing an additional accordion, a French accordion part. As you could hear, when I pressed my phrase pad 1 and phrase pad 2, my additional phrases which I have recorded inside here using my French accordion was triggered. And that gave my playing an added dimension. It sounded as though I had an additional pair of hands to play the additional parts. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I hope that you will start to use the phrase pads in the Casio CT-X3000 and Casio CT-X5000 to enhance your playing. Till the next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.